Hello, my name is Mackenzie Clear, and I'm going to be talking about dyslexia and dysgraphia. So let's go to our agenda. Our agenda for dyslexia and dysgraphia is broken down into 5 different parts: definition and characteristics, timeline and history, justification for instructional interventions, strategies and resources, as well as resources for parents. So let's talk about the definitions and characteristics of dyslexia and dysgraphia. Dyslexia is defined as a learning disability that is neurobiological in origin. It is characterized by difficulties with accurate and/or fluent word recognition and by poor spelling and decoding abilities. Some of the characteristics involves a student's speech is developed later, they have pronunciation difficulties, their vocabulary growth is very slow, they will find it difficult to rhyme words, they'll have trouble learning the basics, meaning the alphabet, the numbers, shapes, colors, etc. These students will be extremely restless and easily distracted. They might have more trouble interacting with their peers, and they'll have difficulties following directions, as well as their fine motor skills are a little bit slower to develop. Now for dysgraphia, dysgraphia is developed as a neurological disorder characterized by writing disabilities. Specifically, the disorder causes a person's writing to be distorted or incorrect. Some of those characteristics for that is that there are going to be excessive erasing and crossing out. There's going to be poor spacing between letters and words, letter and number reversals beyond early stages of writing. That means that they'll get those mixed up. Their formed letters for writing are poor and vary in shape. They'll have awkward and inconsistent pencil grips. They'll use heavy pressure, and they'll develop hand fatigue. They'll be slow to write and copy with legible or illegible handwriting depending on the student. Now for the history. So dyslexia was first discovered in 1877 by Adolf Komswall, and he referred to it as word blindness. It wasn't until 1887 that Rudolf Berlin first used the term dyslexia to encompass reading challenges as a result of a disability. In April of 1968, the first meeting of the World Federation of Neurology's Research Group on Developmental Dyslexia and Word Illiteracy, they met at a hospital in Dallas, Texas, in which the first consensus of the definition of dyslexia became what we call it today. In 1972, a researcher by the name of Sandra Nadido published a book that was one of the first major studies of dyslexia. It was called Specific Dyslexia. Her book, along with Critchley's, was a turning point in early dyslexia research. So the 1970s was termed as a major turning point for the research for dyslexia. And then today, we know more information about dyslexia, and we know that motor coordination, organization, and the ability to concentrate are often affected by it. Now, dysgraphia is a little bit of a different story. There is not much history to dysgraphia, as it was not researched as its own entity until the mid-20th century, meaning that it constantly was accompanied by other learning disabilities and or neurodevelopmental disorders. It continuously fell with those and was not studied as its own entity. It wasn't really heavily focused on. The only time when it was separated was when researchers discovered that there were different types that occur without dyslexia. But there is still little information available concerning those different types of dysgraphia, so there is not much history to it. Now, as I stated before, dysgraphia has always fallen underneath dyslexia. So any states or acts or anything along those lines that have been passed also pass for dysgraphia. So in the state of Illinois, each school district must screen students in grades kindergarten through second for the risk factors of dyslexia using a universal screener approved by the State Board of Education. I have also added a link to our handbook for that. So as the screenings happen, those screenings provide essentially what the students need in order to be supported. That's when we start working with IEPs and developing those in order to fully support them through preschool until second grade, in which their IEPs are, relooked at. I mean, they're looked at every year, but this is the overall justification for instructional intervention because the state of Illinois, we have to screen our students in order to figure out what ways to best support them and just overall for dyslexia and dysgraphia. Now, some strategies and resources for dyslexia and dysgraphia are as follows. For dyslexia, using multisensory input and activities allows students to connect those a little bit easier. Offer learner's choice, meaning having students draw or do something different rather than just writing notes about what is being taught. That can help them comprehend a little bit more and make those connections. Using L-shaped cards allows students to follow a single sentence instead of seeing all the sentences in a row and getting confused. And then using CCQs, which are concept checking questions, which has students pause what they're doing and ask themselves if they are understanding what they're reading or learning, and just essentially checking in with themselves, or they could be checking in with a peer or a teacher. As for dysgraphia, the best strategies to use is to provide notes, already pre-written notes for students so they can listen to the lecture and follow along. So they're not falling behind by trying to write down everything that is being shown. It is encouraged to not grade based off handwriting. I know a lot of schools do that. And then allowing students to dictate their own answers instead of writing them down, which a resource to support the above is a free app called Chatterpix, which allows students to create and share video journals describing what they learned, answering questions, etc., instead of writing them down. So it allows them to have a faster process in which they can comprehend and make it known that they're comprehending instead of struggling to write constantly. Now, a resource for a parent is the Healthline website, which offers more information for parents concerning dyslexia and gives multiple ways and ideas to support their children at home, as well as Exceptional Lives offers more information for parents concerning dysgraphia and how to support their children at home. These will be printed out and handed out to parents and their students as the year goes on. That is the end of this presentation. Thank you so much, and I hope that if you have any questions, you reach out to me, and I hope you learned a little bit more about dyslexia and dysgraphia.